Hello, everyone, and welcome again to the Unfound podcast channel on YouTube. I am Unfound's host, Ed Densel. As the title suggests, this will be a map analysis for the disappearance of the Pickering Six, six young men who went missing from the Pickering area near Toronto in Canada in the province of Ontario in the early morning hours of March 18th, 1995. Before I get started, I hope you will subscribe to this channel. If you are not yet a subscriber, please give this video a thumbs up. And if you'd like to support the channel, please go down below this screen to the join button, and you can support the channel for the low price of 10 cents a day. You get some special cool stuff, of course, being a member on this channel. For this map analysis, what I'm going to do is we're going to take a look at this map that you see in front of you right now. I'm going to go through a few things there. Then I'm going to switch over to a current map, when I mean a water current map of Lake Ontario, so you can understand in general how the water flows, at least the surface water flows in Lake Ontario. And then we'll come back, take another look at this map, go over some of the locations and see if any of it makes sense when compared to that water current information. So what you're looking at right here, of course, in the middle of the screen, as it says, Lake Ontario, down to its southwest is Lake Erie. You should know this is an area of the United States and into Canada that is very familiar to me. I, of course, used to live in Pennsylvania. We used to drive up through Buffalo, past Niagara Falls, and go the whole way around and go up to this little slice right here that is called Rice Lake. I don't know. I've been there, 30 times in my life, something like that. So this area is very familiar to me. I've never been on Lake Ontario, but I've seen it from a car driving by it. And I've been through Pickering many times over the years. And when I think about, did I know about these disappearances? I think I did. Maybe not exactly when they happened in 1995, but certainly heard of them since. But it was a listener, Jill, a think tank member. Her name is Jill, who suggested covering this disappearance for Unfound. But this all rings very true to me, given that I know this area so well. What first probably, excuse me, hitting the, that probably won't be the first time I hit the tripod. First, I think you need to understand, in general, how the water flows in the Great Lakes. The water flows from the Great Lakes to the Atlantic Ocean, and at least from Lake Erie into Lake Ontario, up the St. Lawrence Seaway, in a northeast direction to the Atlantic. And maybe you remember in the interview that Bruce kind of messed up his words, made a little bit of a faux pas, saying it flowed into the Pacific. That actually, of course, flow into the Atlantic. And I can actually show that to you if you've ever wondered where Niagara Falls they're right smack in the middle between Lake Erie and Lake Ontario. So the water comes up past Buffalo, goes into the Niagara River, which we're going to be coming back to later. And these are Niagara Falls right there. So well known, not the highest waterfalls in the world, but probably the most recognized. Anybody who sees them knows what they are. And you can see on this picture right here that the water comes here over the falls and continues to go in Lake Ontario. And not that I want to get into this now. I'm fascinated by the falls because the falls are actually moving. The ground on where the falls happen is very, very soft, and so the water is slowly eroding that land. And so if you were to come back to life 500 years from now, the falls will actually be in a different location. It's fascinating. It's just fascinating stuff to me. Anyway, that is how the water flows. So it gets into Lake Ontario, and in general, that water eventually works its way in a east, if not northeast direction to the St. Lawrence Seaway, which is right here, and still the water has a long way to go before it gets the whole way out to the northern Atlantic, which is right there. Very important, I think, to understand when we are thinking about any boats, anything on Lake Ontario, which way is it going to go? Now I just want to point out some of the general locations that we're talking about here. And I'm going to move it back to the other, this one, because I think it's a little easier to see. Of course, we're talking about Pickering, and Pickering right there is right there in the middle of your screen right there. And in fact, this little blue area that kind of sticks in there, that is where the marina is. The marina is not what we would say right on the water. It is in this little triangle area. In fact, there's like a little barrier of land, probably man-made, that protects the marina from the waves of Lake Ontario. And so there's a little opening there. So if you have a boat in the marina, you got to go out through this little opening. In the marina, you got to go out through this little opening to get out into the lake. So if the boys did take that boat, they had to do that. But that is where Pickering is. You can see where it is in relation to Toronto or Toronto, depending on where you live. And the biggest city, easily the biggest city in Canada. And you can see the line marking the boundary between Canada and the United States right here. It's not straight across. This is actually part of Canada. This is the boundary line, the border line between the two countries. So that is where, go back to it again. That is where Pickering is, right there in the middle of the screen. Now, where is Wilson, New York? Being that it came up in the conversation, it is almost directly south. But in the United States, that's Wilson, New York, right there. And you'll notice that it is just to the east of where the Niagara River comes into Lake Ontario. This is not a long distance. Does not take a very long time, just in your regular lake-going boat, to go from here to there if you wanted to, a lot quicker than what you have to do by car, which is go the whole way around here, and I've done that many times. So that is an important location. And then the other location I want to point out very quickly is this power station where these remains were found. We're going to be coming back to this though a little later. It is right in this area on the lake, on the Niagara River, but it is right here. This is the area where the power station is. It is in Canada. You can probably see it from the American side. But that is where this power station is, where these remains, remember these red jeans, there was another set of remains found there as well. But that's where they are. And keeping in mind that the water flows this direction, not this direction. But that area is right in here. So allow me to now go to a picture. And this is Lake Ontario. I'm going to zoom out maybe a little bit. This is how the water flows in general on Lake Ontario. You can see that the wind generally goes in a west to east direction. You also see that due to the way the earth rotates, that the water rotates in a counterclockwise direction. This is very much like when you flush your toilet and the water always goes down counterclockwise. Same thing. So, but you see within this though, there is this like littler tide pool, you might say. And you have to remember that Pickering is over in here. Here's Toronto down here. And down here, right here is like where Niagara River comes in. Wilson, New York is right in here. But right about here is where Pickering is. And so I guess you could say, generally, if something goes into the river or into the lake, that it will kind of flow around here, but maybe then get caught up in get taken and the water continues to churn. But like I said, Lake Ontario continually dumps into the St. Lawrence Seaway, and everything is going in a east, slightly northeast direction. But if you put something in here, it's probably going to stay near the coastline fairly quickly. Maybe it'll go this way. Maybe it will get sucked into and going out through the St. Lawrence Seaway. Just hard to say, but what you're seeing here is it's maybe a little more complex than we might imagine. And I think it is noteworthy that here in the area where Pickering is, you kind of do have something that maybe goes against what you might think in contrast to the lake as a whole. So it depends. Of course, we don't know what happened. But if these boys did get in, whether it was 3 of the boys, 5 of the boys, 6 of the boys got into a boat, certainly if they had problems, it would depend where they had problems, where they would have ended up. Looking at a current map like this, I've read that sometimes these currents can switch and go the opposite direction, but this is the accepted, anybody who is going to be, and this is from a well-known boat navigation site for the Great Lakes, a reputable website, that this is what it shows for anybody who has a boat going into Lake Ontario. This is what this website thinks boat owners need to know. So we got this smaller clockwise circle, but there's a bigger counterclockwise current circle, drift circle going in Lake Ontario. So let's go back now to this map, the actual satellite map, to go over some of these things. Now, as I said, the tough part of all this is we don't know what happened. The boys might have taken the boat. Somebody else might have taken the boat. We just don't know. Maybe that marina had been missing that boat for a while, and then they saw an opportunity to blame it on somebody else. We just, maybe it got stolen weeks ago, and, this is some sort of insurance fraud. Who knows? I'm not saying I believe that, but we have to be open to different ideas. But when we start thinking about, does it make sense that, for example, this gas tank that was found here down in Wilson, and I'll switch to the other screen now. Wilson, New York is right here. Now, remember what I showed you regarding the current. The current is going this direction right here. Does it make sense? And we remember we have a current kind of in this area that kind of goes like this, but overall the water is going like this. How would a gas tank that maybe was in that boat get to Wilson, New York? Well, you might foresee or predict a scenario where that boat gets out into the middle. Remember, the water is going like this, and something happens. The boat goes under. This gas tank gets ripped away from the boat. It starts going this direction, but that gets caught up and gets turned back. Instead of going back to the west, it goes back to the east along the coastline. We could hypothesize that, no proof of that, but it's certainly within the realm, I guess, of possibility. Of course, as you heard Bruce talk about, a little hard to believe that the gas tank would get separated from the boat because there's a connection. It sounds like a pretty solid connection. And if the boat went under, then most likely the tank would have gotten drugged down with it. The tank would not be able to separate itself. There would not be enough gas in it or whatever to kind of rip away or something like that. It wouldn't be so buoyant to the point that it could resist the power of the boat going to the bottom of Lake Ontario. I think that's what Bruce was trying to say. But certainly conceivable, but I think we can also see that it would have to happen in a very, very particular area of the lake for that to happen. The issue, though, on top of that, is that these currents in Lake Ontario are not that fast. I think I've read that they're a half kilometer, or even if it's like a half a mile per hour, an hour or something. They are very, very slow currents, as it is usually for most lakes. This is not the Mississippi River. This is not the Delaware River. And this is much more like the Gulf of Mexico, whereas you go into the Gulf of Mexico, and if you're in there, you're going to drift away, but it's going to be very, very slow, as we talked about way back when we covered the disappearance of 3 other young Canadian men, but in the Gulf of Mexico. They disappeared in 1994. So, is it conceivable that there was enough time for the boat to go under out here, and then for this tank to drift the whole way over to Wilson, New York? It only going at like a half a kilometer, which is like a third of a mile per hour. I don't know. I'd really have to sit down and do all the calculations, but maybe, just depends. So that is where the gas tank was found, right here. This is up here, where up at the top of the screen. Let me pull this down a little bit. Up here is where Pickering is. Wilson, New York is where the gas tank was found, very close to shore, if not on shore. Not far, but you have to remember there's a lot going on in the water between there and there. Now, the other big issue, was these remains in these red pants. And the pants were found right in the Niagara River right here. Near this power plant, which is in this area. Now, maybe you already see the problem. The water is flowing this way. It's flowing from the... Do that. The water is flowing in a northerly direction due to gravity. The pants are found right here. Well, if they went into the... Here, up at the top of this lake... Up at the top of the screen. They went in up here into the water. Whoever was wearing those pants, we talked about that young man in the interview. How did the pants go upstream against the current? It's a little hard to understand. Now, if you're asking, is it possible if this boat had enough, if they did have enough gas to go from Pickering, drive up the Niagara River, and something happened? Certainly conceivable. If there was enough gas in there, it seemed to me that Bruce said there wasn't, but maybe they got gas before they left. We don't know. We aren't even sure they went into the boat at all. But is it conceivable that they got in this boat and had some crazy idea? Let's go up the Niagara River and go view the falls at 3 in the morning on March 18th. Hey, people do a lot of crazy things. The other issue, though, is this boat did not have any GPS. Of course, this is the time before cell phones, or maybe there were cell phones, but they certainly didn't have GPS or a compass or anything on them, of course. How exactly were they to get from there to there? I suppose they could have just drove along the coastline until they got over there. But that takes a long time. I think they would have been seen. They probably, one way or the other, probably would have run out of gas, whether it was full or not. That's a long way to go. It would end up being daylight. A lot of people would have seen a lot. Seemingly nobody saw anything. So if we're to believe that, they would have had to have gone, maybe they went directly over and just kind of cruised along until they found where the river opening was. I'm sure there's some sort of marker there or lights. Still, this is a boat that has no navigational aids on it at all at night. And this lake is so big that if you get out in the middle of it, you cannot see land. You could be going any direction. And the winds could be pushing you. You think you're going due south, but due to the winds and everything, you could get pushed this way. You could get pushed this way. Very, very dangerous out there. So I just don't know. Now, you heard Bruce say, did those remains get dumped there? And listening to Bruce, and I listened to him just like you did, He said, well, those remains might have been dumped there. I don't know about that, but what seems to make more sense to me, now you should know that I've looked up, are there any American men, maybe not, remember there were two sets of remains found in this area. One being somebody who could be part of the Pickering Six, and then it seemed to be somebody who was much older, a man in his 60s. There were signs of, I think, arthritis, other issues. I looked for anyone in this area on Namus, anybody I could connect to maybe somebody, a boating accident or anything in this area, going the whole way to Rochester, down near Pennsylvania, anyone in this area. I couldn't find anybody. Any Namus person, missing person that I could put with these remains. We have to remember that the falls are there. It's a very dangerous area. I personally am more inclined to believe that those remains ended up where they are due to people going into the Niagara River, maybe suicides, jumping off a bridge, maybe jumping off the Peace Bridge, which is right here at Buffalo, that I've gone across many times, jumping off it, going into the water, dying, and then the remains going downstream. That seems most likely to me. No proof of that, but that's the first choice I would make. Of course, Bruce sees it very differently. I mean, you may be asking, well, how dangerous is Lake Ontario? I've not looked up any statistics, but from what I could tell in reading on this website about Lake Ontario, the most dangerous part of the lake is not over here near Toronto and Hamilton, near Niagara Falls, the Niagara River, all in this area. The most dangerous area of Lake Ontario is over here to the east, near Oswego, New York, because of the current, because of the winds. A lot of factors are coming together in this area, and that's where you find a lot of boat wrecks, boats, ships going back maybe a century or more in this area. Very tough place to navigate. This is actually considered to be the safer area of Lake Ontario. This is considered to be the more dangerous part, even though there's probably way more ships and boats over here on the west. So if you're thinking about that. So that's my map analysis, showing you the cities and the marina that are involved in this disappearance. I showed you the, I'll go back to that. No, I closed it. I showed you the current, the water current for Lake Ontario, at least in general, under normal conditions. And then I showed you where the gas tank was found, where those remains were found, and the conceivability that they could be connected to the disappearance of these boys and the disappearance of this boat. So there you go. Thank you for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up, and I will talk to you again very soon.